What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And this is going to be a different type of episode today. My friend here, my military sister, Miss Sonia here, is well, I'll just give the quick background. We met when I was doing some of my own like personal healing through this group called the Wellness Institute. Um, and most of my listeners know kind of my backstory with PTSD and serving and addiction and recovery. But I was able to get connected with this group, which was kind of like, coming from the military thing, like vulnerability isn't trained, it isn't taught to us coming from that perspective. So I go to this weekend retreat thing, and the first weekend, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I'm with these soft-spoken social workers talking like, about this woo-woo stuff. And thank God Sonia was there, fellow military, and she could tell I was military, and we connected right away. And honest to God, I don't know if I would have made it. I don't know if I would have experienced the amount of healing that I experienced without you being there, without somebody to talk in my language, talk in my terms, and walk with me. And all the times we got to decompress together after the weekends and everything. I'm just so grateful. So Sonia's still active duty in the Air Force. And, as I've been interviewing musicians and other veterans and stuff, Sonia was gracious enough to allow me and my family to come down and spend time with her this past summer in Virginia. And I had brought my podcast stuff, and I was like, hey, you want to be on the show? And because of being active duty, you still got some restrictions on what you can and can do and stuff. So you reversed it on me and said, how about I interview you? And I thought that was a great idea. And we're finally making that happen today. And I wanted to wait till episode 150, something that was big, because I'm such a narcissist, I guess, too. But but you know me more. This is somebody that you we got to know each other well.
Yeah.
I was able to be vulnerable and do a lot of amazing healing with you. I love you. I love your family, and I'm so grateful to have you on. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, and you can maybe do a quick introduction of yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. This is really an honor for me to be part of something that you've created that's helping so many people, especially veterans. I think what better person, right, than you who've gone through so much and have created your own path of healing. And so I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of what you're doing with this show. I've heard quite a few of your podcasts, and I do it when I'm running, actually, which is the great time to listen to podcasts. So thank you for having me. I think we're going to have a great conversation. This is all going to be about you, right? Because your listeners hear about all the people that you bring on and your guests, and they really haven't heard more details about who is this Bill Bailey who put together Boondoggle. And what's your own personal history. So I think this is going to be a great opportunity to deep dive a little bit in Bill's life and who you really are and where you come from and what experiences have shaped you. So
Yeah, I
pretty much,
agree. But
yeah,
real quick, I wanted to mention too,
yeah,
you reminded me, and
yeah.
I'm sorry I keep taking over or whatever, but you
That's
reminded
okay.
me that
Today's about you anyways, right?
during our times meeting together and working on with our healing and stuff, we also did some masterminding and came up with goals. And back then was one of my goals was to do a podcast to
Yes.
start this journey.
Yes, I remember that.
So I mean, you were
Yeah.
there when the ideas came out. I mean, I
Mm.
think the two main ones that I've stuck with pretty well so far is the podcast and JiuJitsu. So
Yeah, but that's the thing, that you said it, that you stuck with, because most of us make plans because we want to do great things, but we don't stick with it, right? Because it's not easy to get through the grind, right? And persevere when you're feeling like you don't know what you're doing, right? Because we most of us just want to do things that we're really good at or that we're experts at. But starting something, I mean, here you are becoming an expert in podcasts just by doing it, right? Over and over. 150 episodes. This is you. So I'm glad we had this opportunity. So quick about me. I'm a clinical psychologist. I was a musician in college back in the 90s, and I'm a 70s child. And in the 90s, I was in college and I was a musician, decided to study psychology. And then, after I graduated, I had a licensed clinical psychologist, and I started a private practice, and I worked in different hospitals, and I ended up as a contract in the Air Force, and then I decided to join. So I'm a late joiner. I've had two careers before I joined the military, so this is like my third career. So different perspective, right? Coming in towards the middle part of my life, I've been able to appreciate the military in a different way. I've always been in joint environments, so work closely with Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard. So it's been a beautiful experience. I love it. I just want to say anything I say today, I ask. Bill does not represent the ideas of the Air Force. I'm here as Bill's friend, Sonia Pons. I'm also a psychologist, and that's who you're going to be hearing asking these questions. Okay?
And what better
Good.
person to talk to me as a psychologist? So here's my therapy session live on the internet.
That's right. That's right. And I'm sure people will get a lot from this, right? And hopefully do some self-reflection and ask themselves, similar questions. But let's start with, little Bill. I want to know a little bit about little Bill, right? So let's go back as far as you can remember, Bill, when you were little. What did you dream about becoming? What was the one thing that you said, this is what I'm going to be when I grow up?
Well, little Bill, I think one thing that definitely has stuck out with me, and I would still love to try and give it a shot, is to become a Jedi. I think Star
Fantastic.
Wars influenced me so much as a kid, and I just I know a lot of people are like, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a
Yeah.
firefighter, policeman, stuff like that, and I might have went through some of that, but man, I want to be a Jedi. And the funny thing is, like, as I get older, I realized how much, my how what the like spiritual side of that movie and the message was, and about giving into our emotions and anger and hatred and where that can lead us, and giving
Yes.
into, like the stuff that ended up becoming my addictions and stuff like that. But I don't want to get too far ahead and make it too philosophical or whatever. But yeah, I want to be a Jedi, and I think I still want to be a good warrior for the light.
That's fantastic, Bill. I can say I know you because I kind of knew you were going to go in that direction, that you are a Jedi. You became that, right? Because people think Jedi and they think, the saber and fighting, but there's that you highlighted the aspect of being a Jedi. That's what's really important. That's really the transformation, right? Of being connected with people, because the Jedis can sort of like get into people's minds, but they can get into what they feel. And that's what you've been working on. So I guess your dream came true. You are becoming a Jedi. That's fantastic. Good answer. I love that. Yeah. Okay. So anything else other than being a Jedi? How did you end up wanting to be in the military and specifically the Navy? How did that story happen?
Oh, well, I mean, I always wanted to. I think I wanted to serve mainly because my father was a World War II Marine, and he is very proud of his service. And there were so many great qualities that I saw with my dad growing up, um, and that fellowship and that just his sense of duty. And my mom was a big support. They were both involved in like the, helping out the VAs and the VFW, uh, and stuff like that for veterans. So I knew I wanted to go into that direction. I think at a young age, I didn't feel like I was the college type, because as I got older in high school, I was more the class clown. Um, Maybe still dealing with some, childhood wounds, trying to cover up with laughter and what is that thing that Tom would call me out on, that gallows humor. I think started at a young age for me too. But I originally was going to go into the Marine Corps. I wanted to be like my dad and go into the Marine Corps. Unfortunately, my addictions with alcohol and stuff started, at that young age in high school too. And I end up getting myself, I could put it out there now because it's part of my past. It's not who I am anymore. But, I got myself in some trouble that ended up making the news, and I had to do my attorney at the time thought it'd be a good idea. Well, you're getting ready to leave for the Marines, so why don't you just serve your time, do a weekend stint in the North Olmsted jail, and then you'll be done, and we won't have to do a long drawn out court thing or whatever. And alcohol was related to the problem. So I was like, all right, sounds like a great idea. Well, they had these little things called the police blotters in the newspaper, and they decided to mention, well, Bill Bailey did this, and he's serving. He's going to go ahead and serve his time over the weekend so he can leave for the Marines. And my recruiter, I think it was Gunny Sergeant McGowan. He got caught wind of that, saw the thing, and he's like, "No, you're not. You're not coming in the Marines." I embarrassed the Marine Corps, and I wasn't even in yet. And it really sucked, but I don't know. I had friends that were going in the Navy. The Navy were kind of about like, I don't know. It seemed like it became an atmosphere where they encouraged like drinking and rowdiness. So I talked to my friend's recruiter, and they were like, all right, you're going to get on the phone with this guy, and you're going to tell him what you did. And he's going to ask you, are you going to do it again? I'm going to say no, and it was basically some lieutenant in charge of recruiting, and I'm like, I promise I won't do this stuff again, crossing my fingers or whatever, and they took me in the Navy, thankfully. But yeah, sorry for that big, long backstory, but it is part of, I originally wanted to be a Marine. I don't, like my dad, I don't know, who knows where things could have went, but this is my journey, and it went the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, that's a great story, Bill. Serving whichever branch you serve, I think your dad would be proud, right? Because we're doing what a very small percentage of the U.S. population does, and so I think that in my family there were Army folks. My grandfather, Korean War, so I was the first Air Force person in my family, but I have cousins who were in the Army. I had a cousin in the Navy. And I think, whatever branch you serve, really is not the important thing, right? I think it's that we do sacrifice a portion of our lives to serve our country, right? Because we want to defend that freedom. We want everybody else to enjoy. We want our children to enjoy it. And so here, speaking of that sacrifice that we have to make, right, to be part of a branch of the Department of Defense, is in your experience now that we're going back to the Navy, right? When you first started, what was your expectation and what was the reality?
Well, I guess I might have expected Navy boot camp to be harder than it was. I was like mentally preparing for like Marine Corps drill instructors, hard physical, people, beating you down and building you up and stuff. We got a little bit of that in the Navy. I mean, I got a lot of, yelling and stuff like that. But I mean, I grew up with a World War II Marine, so I was kind of like numb to the yelling when I screwed up, But it was more about like, attention to detail, folding your clothes the proper way, marching and it blew my mind when we'd see the man, and somebody just mentioned who they were the other day. There was the group of people that couldn't hang and where they made their own unit before they sent them home. And we'd march past them. And I was just like, what the heck was so bad, here? And then when there's always looking back like, man, I wish I would have tried for another more, more challenging parts of the Navy. I have some friends that I've become friends with that were SEALs. I wondered if, man, back then when I was young and more physically able, I don't know if I was mentally ready, but I wouldn't, it would have been nice to have given that a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So that's something you would have liked to do over again, is challenge yourself more, right? But who's saying
Yeah.
that? Is that uh, Bill, the mature, sober, healed individual, right? That's in hindsight, right? Did
Yeah.
you feel that way about yourself back then? Did you feel like you were gonna be able to tackle anything that comes your way, or is that how you feel now?
I mean, to tackle anything that comes my way, I still don't know if I feel that. I mean, it's still,
Yeah.
it's a part of the journey and the healing of years of that inner child that we learned so much about.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, physically, I probably could have been better at it. I mean, my last couple of years of high school, my friends talked me into joining the wrestling team, and I wasn't good by any stretch of the means, but I showed up to practice every day and I worked hard and I didn't quit. And I don't know if I could have carried that over into,
Yeah.
something else. But at the same time, like I said, I had that alcohol crutch, that I would numb with. So
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that amazing? Like when we have the physical fitness, we don't have the mental maturity. And then when we have the mental maturity, we don't have the physical, stamina anymore. If we could just have those two at the same time, we could just take over the world, Bill.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
I like to hear maybe anecdote of something that you witnessed or experienced in the military that's been like the oddest thing, or your favorite story to tell, something that it's either funny or embarrassing, or just something like that you like to share. What would that be?
Oh, I mean, there's so many in my time in the Navy, it was just, um, and I mean, from what I understand, it's changed quite a bit, which is kind of sad because I think there's parts of those rites of passage that all young men need to go into or go through.
Hmm.
But we used to just be, I don't know, like I, I remember during my last deployment, we were messing with one of the guys in in our barracks or our huts, and we had these what are those, like lockdown chains or whatever and stuff, and straps that you lock equipment on a truck or whatever with, and we hitched up his bed, his rack up to the
Hmm.
ceiling and stuff. So when he got off duty, he was like, "What the hell?" And little pranks like that. Or I mean, when I was in the reserves, in a lot of the crazy stuff we did in my assault craft unit, um, that I think we could start talking about today. The statutes of limitations are over, but I mean, we drove these Mike 8 boats, which are these landing crafts, and we're up there in Lake Erie in Cleveland, and we would, hey, we're going to go do swim quals, so everybody, we'd take the boats out and just, spend the day swimming. Somebody bring out a hibachi grill. Somebody brought one of those like watermelons with alcohol, and it just became like party boats. And then like women and other boaters were driving by and whatever. And we're all like,
Yeah.
like messing with them while we're on duty. And, I remember we would do these harbor fests where it would take us a couple hours to drive the boats to like from Cleveland, Ohio up to like Port Clinton, Ohio, where we would spend a weekend because some captain had beachfront property and we could do beaching drills and stuff like that. But during that drive there, I saw too many guys like in nothing but their cover
Yep.
and with potato gun launchers, and we would like attack each other like naked pirates and stuff. It was just weird. If like Carl Monday's our investigative reporter here in Cleveland, if he would have flew
Yeah.
over in Chopper 5, your tax dollars at work, something else, you know?
Those sounds like great times. Like
Yeah.
there's a type of bonding that happens between military brethren that's you can't find anywhere else. It's undescribable, right? Like you love your family members, but there's something special, and it's like a tighter bond with those people that you serve that becomes part of your life forever. And I have people that I've deployed
Totally.
with that I to this day, if you know, if I when I talk to them, it's like it could have been a couple years since we've been in contact, but it just feels like we spoke yesterday,
Yeah.
right? Because there's that bond is like a lifetime connection that nothing can ever destroy, right? So there's the good times, right, that make that strengthen that bond, and then there are the times that are hard. They're sad. They're scary. They're defeating. And some of these. Tell me what has been the hardest part of your military service with the Navy and your deployments. What for you has been the hardest part to overcome?
Um, I think some of the hardest things, especially like, you know, a lot came out during my last deployment was you know, not being home for my kid's birthday. You know, and my last deployment, I mean, you met my daughters and see them
Hmm.
today, but you know, my last deployment, Bianca, my oldest, was just turning 8 years old, you know, so I wasn't home for her turning 8. Celeste was 4.
Hmm.
Um, you know, missing them. That's why I always tried to volunteer to stay active and keep my mind on things, even when I was off duty. You know, I just didn't want to sit there and miss my kids. You know, but also my dad's first wife, my half brother, half sister's mother. My dad, it was pretty incredible. He's, even though they got divorced and then, you know, he married my mother and had me, they ended up having a good friendship
Hmm.
afterwards. And the kids and everybody, you know, it was a pretty tight family. And his first wife, like, really took a liking to me and, just, treated me like I was one of hers, you know?
Yeah.
And had a great relationship with her, and she ended up passing away while I was away. And because it wasn't next to kin, you know, I couldn't
Hmm.
come home and be there for that. But I mean, I got a taste of that early in boot camp. My actual grandma died, and this is back when you'd get the letters. You know, people would write letters and put a
Yes.
stamp on them and mail them to you. You know, kids. Um, and I'm sitting there during mail call in boot camp, and I'm finding out that my grandma passed.
Mm.
And you know, it was sad, but also I was like, you know, man, there's nothing I can do about it. And that what, you know, what was told to me, if I would have went home for a week, I would have been brought back and put in a different group of people, you
Mm.
know, that it's a week behind or whatever to finish boot camp. And then you talk about those bonds. It's like, man, I started with these guys. I'm going to finish with these guys. So
Mhm.
they gave me the phone call, and I was able to call home and talk to my mom and dad, and they totally understood that I wasn't going to be able to be there. They knew there was nothing. What I'm going to come home, cry, and hug everybody. I can do that after I graduate. So I got that experience right from the get go about not being home for
Yeah.
losing loved ones and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm there with you. I know that feeling all too well. And it's almost like a shadow of guilt that overcomes you, right? It's kind of hard to
Oh yeah, yeah,
shake that, like guilt that you weren't there, right? That you're supposed to be there for your family, you're not, but you're
yeah. We
there.
talked about that. I know
Yeah.
we
Hmm.
that was something we really connected on, and we wanted to
Yeah.
work on during some of our sessions was the shame of
Yes.
leaving our kids and that
Yes.
sorrow and sadness, you know. And
Hmm.
And man, that's another thing that reminds me of how grateful I am to have had you there with me, somebody else that understood it, so we could both cry and
Oh
do that
yeah.
healing together.
Oh yeah. I felt the same way. It's like this is what's so special about veterans coming together and vocalizing their grievances, right? And their sorrows, because it's not all about deployment experiences that are scary, where you're being shot at, or there's other aspects of deployment that can lead to traumatic experiences, right? And I think professionally, I think that leaving family behind and missing birthdays and missing family weddings and missing every day with your kids, it's like it's a voluntary absence, because we're volunteering to defend our country, right? So it's like you
Mhm.
have to give something, we take something away, right? So yes, I've been fortunate to hear your stories about that. So I think that strengthen each other, right? When we are able to talk about guilt, which is something that most veterans have a hard time talking about, and I think it's important. Bill, what do you think?
Oh, I agree 100%. And like, I mean, yeah, like you were saying, I mean, I mean, I remember I experienced seeing someone die in front of me at, I think I was 18, 19,
Hmm.
and that was something that got compartmentalized. And luckily, through the hypnotherapy and the wellness, we were able to go back and find that root of some of that pain. But at the same time, just there's so much with leaving your kids, and then they serve along with you. They're having school plays, they're having these events, there's having, and I know my ex, I think, did the best she could while I was away with them. But getting, that one time I get to call home and find out that, Celeste, she was 4 at the time, and her and Bianca were playing when they were shopping at the mall in the coat or the clothes rack thing. And Celeste slipped and fell and cut her head and had to get stitches. And the whole time they said she was at the hospital crying for me,
Mm,
and
yeah,
I'm across the country in Kuwait
yeah,
on the other end of the phone, like, my daughter was crying and screaming for me, and
yeah,
that really, wish I could
yeah,
have been there. You
yeah.
want to be there, and then coming home afterwards, then it's like you have to. Not only do I wish there was more understanding and training for our families to understand that we're going to come back a little bit psychologically and physically different, and how
Hmm.
to prepare them to train for that. But at the same time, how do we handle the changes that happen with them? Like Bianca almost stepped up to become, like, took a parental role with Celeste while I was
Hmm.
gone. And I noticed when I came back, I had to do a lot of work to tell her it's okay. You're allowed to be a kid again. I'm home now.
Yeah,
So there was just so
yeah,
much that
yeah.
we still kind of working on. And then, these are things that she carries on. And thank God that, I was able to get, that experience with wellness. And, and I'm not trying to make this a plug for them, but the
Hmm. Hmm.
hypnotherapy was huge
Yeah,
for me to go back and find my roots of
yeah,
things that I've carried my entire life and that I'm still learning to deal with and
yeah.
carry today. And they, at their age now, are able to get some of that healing so it doesn't carry on their whole life.
Absolutely, Bill. It's like I was thinking about identity and who we are in different parts of our life. And so who you are as the sailor, as the warrior deploying and experiencing good times, horror times, bad times, scary times, and then who you are when you come back are not the same people, right? So
Yeah.
um I want to I like you to tell us a little bit about that transition, the identity of the sailor, and then the identity of the dad, of the man who is now, living back in the civilian world, and in that process of adaptation. Like, what was that like for you? Um, what what worked well and what didn't work well for you?
Um, when I first came home, there's a lot of things, and that goes back to more of that shame and guilt, but it's the past and things I can't change,
Yeah.
except for who I am today and what I do about things today. But when I first came home, I was going through, and I'm not trying to throw shade, but my relationship with me and my ex wasn't healthy when I left. A lot of that, I won't throw shade at her end of it, but I got to take accountability for my end of it, and I wasn't. I was drinking. I was a womanizer. I wasn't faithful. I was always trying to escape to some party and escape my responsibilities. I love my kids, but I didn't love their mother. I guess has I could have done better back then. Um, so when I came home, she had already kind of started a new relationship, and so that was tough to come home to that. I I know I helped push her towards that, but anyway, I come home and thankfully, I don't know, it was I came home, I got sober and I got saved. So I got some spirituality in my life, which I think helped big time with how I tried to handle the transition back then. But there was a lot of times where my emotional immaturity shined through when during arguments and fights. And, I made some comments that I wish I could take back and my kids heard, of things like, I wish I was still over there. I don't want to come home to this bullshit.
Mhm.
I'd rather still be serving over there because at least I could trust those people. Um, it'd been better if I had died over there. I've even made comments like that. Why my little girls were standing on the side hearing this. Um, and I made some bad joke the other day and got called out by my trainer about you know, oh well, once my kids are married and off, I can finally off myself and be done with this stuff. And how much of that is still inside in my head and that I battle, you know, for me to say something stupid like that, and I said it in front of one of his kids that he trains,
Mhm.
you know, and so he tore into me about it, in a loving friend way, but it reminded me, and it took me back to that moment with saying that stuff in front of my kids, so there was that, and then I had this crutch, this I guess this chip on my shoulder towards my neighbors, towards my, the rest of the civilian population. Like, you guys don't give a shit.
Mhm.
And everybody's, I don't know, life went on for them, you
Yeah.
know? And I was upset that, which was, I mean, when I look at it now, it's like, well, how can I, I can't expect everybody, I can't have these expectations that everybody feel the way I feel and feel hurt and whatever,
Yeah.
I think I'm getting off topic a little bit. What was the
No, you're doing it. I, what you're saying is that there's the self-defeating talk that continues that you're always struggling with, and even though you're doing a lot of healing work, sometimes it catches you off guard and it shows
yeah,
up again, right? Like, um, and it may come up in times when you're frustrated. So I think, um, what you're getting to is that the that is a continuous process, right? Like coming back and having so many things be different in your life, with your wife, with your girls, with the civilian world. It's a huge transition, and it's exactly what our veterans go through, right?
yeah,
When they come back and the identity that they had for so many years no longer serves them, right? So, Bill, I want to hear about that search, your search for your new identity of like, how do you go about that? How do you save the identity that you have as a military member without disparaging it, right? without dishonoring it, but leaving it somewhat behind to give birth to a new identity, right? What are the things that you have done to get into that process?
It's funny you ask that too, because like my sponsor kind of like challenged me the other day too, because I'm still trying to figure out that process. I still, I mean, I got my Navy thing behind me. I'm wearing my Navy shirt. I still seem to almost put too much of my identity in that, because I'm proud of my service and I'm proud that I went and did something like you said that many don't. And apparently Brutus is proud of me too. He's up there barking, um, but I can't, I have to have there's more to me, you know? Um, and I'm still kind of like working through that, because the other thing is like now I'm jumping into being a podcaster, and this is becoming like a new identity thing. And
Yes.
I do feel like you said that I have the ability of reaching and helping others with this project, but it's not completely who I am either. I'm a father who loves his daughters. I mean, like I've told him so many times. I mean, the first time I when I held Bianca, my oldest, for the first time, I cried tears of joy, and it was just like I felt this is unconditional love. I've never felt this for another human being before in my life. Like, I will die and whatever for you,
Yeah.
And so I'm proud of being a dad, but there's so much more to. I'm still trying to figure out like who I am, like what is my purpose. I'm on this spiritual path, I'm in recovery. I try and turn my will and my life over to God every morning and let him take charge and lead me to what who the person he wants me to be. But it's not always, but then you get caught up in the world. Like, I'm doing jujitsu. I enjoy jujitsu. It's fun for me, but there's people that it's competition. It's life. It's this and that. I'm like, all right, I don't know if I'm going to be into all that, my body, like we talked about earlier, my body now, as I'm maturing and I want to do things, my body won't allow me to do all the things that my mind would like to do, but I still like showing up, and I still like the camaraderie and the fellowship and the training and learning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out like exactly who I am, and I forgot what exactly was the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. No, you answered it. You answered it. You're on it. What would you say to the Bill 10 years ago?
Let's see, 10 years ago. So, man, I mean, so 10 years ago, wait, what was 10 years ago? It's 21.
Yeah.
So that would have been,
Well, you
um,
go by years. You got to go by the year, right, to orient
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Was I retired in 2012. So,
Yeah.
um, but and I got sober in 2009. And
Yeah.
like when I got sober, I felt I had that like a spiritual awakening then too, because I got saved. I was
Hmm.
very involved with my church. So there was like a lot of people say, I was different back then, that I was like a lot
Yeah.
calmer and at peace, but that fire doesn't stay lit forever. And
Yeah.
you got to find like a balance,
Mm.
like we go back to being a Jedi and the balance in the force, am I
Yeah.
going to give into the dark? Am I going to give into the light? I need to find that balance. So I guess if I could say anything to me 10 years ago, I think I was in a better place and I was starting this journey, but I
Hmm.
think I would tell myself, because I was extreme, I always jump into extremes, and I think I would tell myself then, like, look for that balance,
Yeah.
start seeking that balance. And you, and reassure myself that I'm a good human being.
Mhm.
I can't keep. I think I was still carrying the shame and guilt cross a lot back then too,
Mhm.
and I think I would have probably dumped it a little bit earlier if I came back to tell myself like, you can't do nothing about yesterday. You can't do nothing about 5 minutes ago. All you got is
Yeah.
today, and don't even worry too much about what you got going on tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Bill, how do you sabotage yourself?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, and I still do. Um, I think, I give into the insecurity. I give into the voice in my head that says I'm not enough. I give that too
Mhm.
much power. I give into the shame and guilt of the past,
Mhm.
things that I still let things that shouldn't control me control me.
Yeah.
Um, and like one of my main things is like, I've been, like I said, I've been training, working out with my trainer. I've been doing jujitsu, and physical changes have happened, and things start. I start getting this confidence again in myself,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden, more people want to talk to me, more there, more responsibilities start coming, and then I get overwhelmed and scared, like,
Mhm.
oh
Yeah.
no, I gotta have more responsibilities, or maybe there's a female I kind of like starts paying attention to me and talking to me,
Mhm.
and I get, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
but then it's not about me anymore. I got to
Yeah.
start, being how do I have a relationship? How do I talk? How do I like care about the things they care about? So then I'll just like, we'll go back to, was it before we went on there? We were talking about comfort food and eating and stuff like,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I'll go back to eating crap and self-sabotage myself. So, well, if I put some of this weight back on, then they'll stop talking to me and I won't be
Yeah.
so overwhelmed. I'll turn them
Exactly.
off, which is ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah.
But I still tend to do that.
I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that, right? Because I think one of the hardest things for veterans is to establish new relationships with people. Especially, it's easy to establish relationships with people who've been where you are, right? Like who are
Yeah.
veterans as well, because you sort of can. There's an unspoken language you can anticipate. That there's a culture that you both speak and a language that you both speak. But when you're trying to establish a relationship with people who don't share that background with you, then you're really in a vulnerable place. I think that's one of the biggest problems, right, with the veteran suicides is the isolation, the loneliness, the um, going into your own head and not having that other person share some of your reality and ground you, right? Because we need those people in our lives to say, hey, you're actually safe right now, and you are loved and you are important to me, and we need to hear that until we die, right?
Yeah.
That we are
Yeah.
important to someone else, and not just your kids, right? Because your girls love you, and they tell you, and they hug you, and so you get that love. But some of our brethren and sisters don't have that, right? They don't have that physical contact, and so how do we help them overcome that? Like you just said, you being transparent about how you sabotage yourself helps other people see, oh, shoot, maybe I'm doing the same thing. I'm like
Yeah.
pushing people away too, right? And contributing to my own loneliness. So there's like 1,000 ways that we can sabotage ourselves. And I really like how you describe that. Let me just put some pounds on back on, and then I might not be so attractive to someone else. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when we first met, I think I still had my
Hmm.
long hair and
Hmm.
beard and everything, and in the wellness group. And I
Hmm.
mean, some of the other people in circle would say how intimidating and standoffish I looked,
Yes.
you know. And then
Yeah.
as we start ripping some of the armor off, it was just a big teddy bear, but
Yeah. Yeah.
just a
And then
big
one day
kid.
you show up with a clean cut and shaven face, right? And like
Yeah.
everybody was flirting with you. It's like, oh, you look so good. Yeah, that was a good experience, right? Like now you're getting a lot of positive feedback, right? What do you do with it?
Yeah. So I'm gonna go snack at the, during breaks.
It's so hard to say thank you and accept it, right? Sometimes we just say thank you, but we don't really mean it. We're just saying thank you, right? How do
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because it's like my sponsor and my trainer are both, called me out, like, when I make progress in jujitsu, my trainer's just like, man, you did really good today and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but I didn't do this. And I'm quick to point out where I was weak at, instead of saying thank you for that. And my sponsor would always tell me stuff, man, if you have to put a card in your hand, write down on it,
Yeah.
what to say when somebody, gives you a compliment, pull out card, thank you, shake hand, and then, put card back,
That's great. That's great. Like prompts, right? Like I'm
Yeah,
supposed to read this.
yeah. Hold on. I'm supposed to
Yeah,
say thank you and just take it in and not like crap all over your blessing on me, you know?
exactly. And that's so true. Like, so there's nothing wrong with having prompt cards. Like I would seriously recommend that because you start acting a certain way, right? Until you become it, and then it becomes part of you, right? So it's so true. We think, oh, I'm not a faker. I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to be true to myself. So we often think that having prompt cards is not really authentic, but I don't think so. I think it's practicing behaviors that we're not used to doing until they become part of, like, to stop saying negative things about ourselves, right? Like that's
Yeah.
it takes practice to stop a bad habit and then to start a new one. Like waking up in the morning and being like, "Good morning, sexy. How are you? You look better than ever," right? That you may be joking about it, right? Initially, but you just keep saying that every day. By the 100th time, you're like, "Hey, I really love you. I'm proud of you." Like looking at yourself in the mirror and saying these
Yeah,
things.
yeah. I had a veteran on a previous episode that, that was one of the advice he gave me. He's just like, he gets in the mirror, he looks at himself, he says, you might get me tomorrow, but you're not going to get me today. Like,
I
I'm
heard
gonna
that one.
own you.
Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
And I like that too. That's something else that I need to
yeah,
start taking in.
yeah, yeah. Well, we've covered most of your transition, right? From like your military life and your experience, the good times, the not so good times. Guilt has been like a big theme in our conversation, about not being with your family and especially your daughters. Um, the bonds that we create in the military and then transitioning to civilian life, and what does that look like? What has that look like for you specifically? um, and then of course your healing process, how you sabotage yourself, and then the things that you do. So for you particularly, jujitsu has been a healing aspect of your life. Podcasts and the hypnotherapy training that you were doing, right? Which you're training to do something, but when you're training to do something and provide a service for someone else, you get the benefits of it as well, right?
Yeah.
Um, what else? Oh, and then your faith, of course. That's the other part that I think was like the beginning of your sobriety, right? Was like your experience of being born again, as you mentioned. What else is part of your healing that you might have not mentioned yet?
Um, I think, I've looked into a lot of things outside, the norm, I guess, outside of, I mean, sometimes, the VA is definitely a lot better than what it was,
Hmm.
when back in the 90s.
Yeah,
And from what I hear from other people, it's definitely come a long way, but it's still, I think, could do better when it comes to the mental health side, like taking care of the people that take care of the people.
yes,
I ran into issues with that because it was like, you hire and fire so many until you find that right fit. And
yeah,
I found that right fit, and I started continuing some really good healing with this therapist, and they just overworked her and drained her, and she just
yeah,
couldn't give
yeah.
no more.
And they get
You know?
fatigued, right? Empathic,
Yeah.
empathy fatigued. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, I would look outside, for alternative ways. I've done like those flotation chambers, those isolation tanks or whatever. That's
Yeah,
like pitch
yeah,
black, like you're floating in space, and freaked me out a little bit at first. But then that's the closest I've gotten to like meditation, I think,
yeah,
and just being one on one with God. I've done, all kinds of other alternative therapies. Just yesterday, I was doing an IV drip to try and boost my immune system to fight this thing I've been fighting all week.
Hmm.
And
I saw pictures of you with some like suction cups. Tell me about that.
oh yeah, yeah.
What is that?
Well, thankfully, a chiropractor by me, he does acupuncture and cupping.
Hmm.
And I was able to, the VA's finally got a chiropractor and acupuncture. They finally,
Nice.
are doing, but I was able to get this outsourced through the VA to this guy. So the VA covers it, which is a good thing. But the cupping, you talked about healing in jujitsu. Well, maybe some mental healing, but physically it's kicking my
Uh,
ass, trying to get into this at my age. And there's like many days it's just like, oh man, I need some recovery time. But there's a lot of good people that I've become close with that they understand where I'm at physically,
hmm.
and some of them know where I'm at mentally, and they just like, they let me do what I can do, and they encourage and help me out. They don't, anybody that's like new or younger that like everything is still like really stiff and hard. I was like, hey man, go roll with somebody else. I ain't gonna roll with you. You know, yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get hurt. You know, but all the guys that make it like a flow, like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
an energy, and are just trying to,
Mm.
hey, now just do this and tweak this and use your body structure to your advantage. You
Yeah.
know, you don't have to be flexy bendy. You can do,
Yeah.
this and that. So, um, getting out and, I mean, honestly, I guess some more of my healing, I wouldn't have got the courage to get out and sign up for that if I didn't do the healing we did in wellness. I talked
Yeah.
about it for a long time. I was interested in jujitsu years and years ago,
Hmm.
but I didn't have the courage to get out
Yeah.
and do that until I finally did some of that healing, and part of my healing continues doing this.
Yes.
Doing this podcast has
Hmm.
been a way for me to communicate with people, learn how to have conversations with complete strangers. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, this one's very easy
Yeah.
because you're my sister. I love you.
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but there's people I meet for the first time in this little square that are
Yeah.
musicians that I admire and stuff like that, and you get all kind of try not to get starstruck and nervous or whatever. But they're just regular people, man. I've had
Yeah.
the blessing and opportunity through this has opened some doors where I am able to partake in some recovery meetings
Yeah.
with Zoom recovery meetings with some, you know, musicians and actors and people that I've grown up watching and admiring, and I'm not going to be, can't give name, anonymity and all that, but talk about coming in there and then feeling like less than. I got invited,
Yes.
and we all got the same disease, so it's like that's all I needed for invitation, really. But in my head, I'm like, man, what do I say to these guys?
Hmm.
And then find out, wow, man, to learn some of their struggles is like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad I'm not you, because it got
Yeah.
to be harder to learn humility and stuff when everybody thinks you're the greatest thing,
Yes.
you know. But I've formed some good relationships and bonds with them because of being able to be vulnerable, and I've been
Yeah.
able to like cry on the Zoom with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You
I
know, this is amazing, Bill. I'm putting together in my head something as I'm listening to you, telling your story about the healing part, which I think it's important for your audience, right? Because this is what brought you to put this together, right? It's to help other veterans find their story and their path to healing, because it shows up differently for everybody. But what I put together as I'm listening is that you're the embodiment of resiliency in all of its domains, right? You do things that strengthen you mentally, physically, socially, and spiritually. And everything that you mentioned, you went in all those four categories, right? And then I was thinking about the physical aspect, how you said, well, it's been very difficult for me to move my body and do something like jujitsu, which has always, drawn me in. And trauma locks your body into a stiff position, right? And we don't move, and then we get spasms, and we get all kinds of injuries and pain because the body's way of reacting to trauma is to lock up, right? All your muscles get tight. And so moving your body is like it's the biggest expression of vulnerability, to release, to be open, right? To
Yeah.
anything that can come your way, because trauma is not just physical threat, right? It can be a psychological threat as well. And so I love how you've incorporated the jujitsu, like you stuck with it. Because I remember when you said, oh, I started jujitsu like a few years ago, and how you struggle with staying with it and dropping off and coming back to it. Like your perseverance is really at the pinnacle of your success in healing. And I hope that your audience takes that with them, that it hasn't been like all perfect smooth sailing healing process. It's been like you fall, you get up again, you fall, you get up again.
Yeah.
Perseverance is like your middle name, man.
Yeah. Well, they say
Mhm.
smooth sailing does not a good sailor make, or something like that, I think is the saying. But you mentioned the stiffness, and that's
Yeah.
man, that's so much truth to that. And a lot of my people at jujitsu will tell you, the upper belts that have worked with me and try and train me,
Hmm.
I still get caught up in that fight or flight response.
Yeah.
I mean, when somebody's trying to choke you, whether they're a friend or a foe,
Yeah.
they're trying to choke you, so your
Yeah.
body kind of will kick into,
Yep.
so I've been told to me several times at the beginning, and I'm learning and I'm getting better at it.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm making the progress, but they're like, man, you're too stiff. Loosen up,
Mhm.
like go with the flow. And then I stop. I don't breathe. I
Yep.
forget to breathe because I'm too busy, like trying not to get choked or trying to you know, overpower my opponent or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's not about that. It's just going with the flow and releasing. And I've built some relationships and trust with a lot of the upper belts now, where it's just like, okay, I know you're not going to try and hurt me. You're
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
really, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not competition. It's just we're trying to help each other out,
Yeah.
and it's slowly making progress. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to paint myself off as Jocko Willink or anything like that. I'm still like new and a low belt and whatever. But the biggest obstacle and breakthrough for me is just reminding myself to breathe
Yeah.
and to loosen up, and know that even in the middle of somebody trying to put me in an armbar or put me in a choke or something like that, I'm still safe because I've got this bond now with these people, you know.
Yes. Boom. That's a boom moment right there, right?
Yeah.
Even though I'm on a chokehold, I know that I'm still safe. And your body's starting to get that, right? It's like the body's always like far behind in getting the new reality and understanding that. And I've heard people do what you're doing with yoga. Yoga has worked for them, to release, to breathe, to let go. Because if we don't work on it consciously, it's like it's we're always going to have that lockdown tightness, because it's the protective pose, right? The close down. And that close is not just physical, it's also mental, right? Like close
Hmm.
to the ideas of new things, close to the ideas of friends, close to the ideas of like being okay without eating the tub of ice cream in the freezer, like
Yeah.
it's being okay with where you are and in your surroundings and all that. That's a beautiful message, Bill. I really love how this has come full circle, right? In this conversation. I love it. This is beautiful. So unless you want to say something else, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, because I want to ask some fun questions and maybe something that your audience doesn't know about you. If you're
Okay.
ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's hear some things that are more about like preferences and what kinds of things you like. So I like to know if do you have a song that has inspired you in life that the lyrics or the sound or whatever, what would that be? What would be that one song that you're like, that's my song that speaks of me?
Man, these questions sound familiar, but um, and now I get to feel what some of my audience or my guests feel,
Yeah.
on the spot when they have to come up with one song, especially musicians. It's always so tough
They
for
have
them to
20
just,
songs that they're their favorites, right? Then you got
yeah,
to come up
yeah.
with one. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm trying to think, like, what is one that I mean, I've gone through so many different phases. There used to be like some, like, I mean, you could even say Eye of the Tiger, like
Yeah.
Rocky and stuff back in the day. There's like some Pantera or something I played when I was back in my aggressive days that I needed
There
that
you
extra
go.
push,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to think today,
Hmm.
who I am today, what's a song that inspires me? Ah, man, yeah, I might even just say the whole band because I kind of brought them into the wellness thing, but like
Yeah.
Skillet, that band Skillet, man, they just
Hmm.
I mean, I still like, like this band Hatebreed, and although the title, the name of the band might sound like, oh, it's bad, but it's always the vocalist Jamie Jost is always screaming empowerment,
Yeah.
empowering message, and it's a positive message that I love.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine now plays in the band, so they'll
Uh-huh.
always be one of my favorites. But man, I'll go ahead and say the song by Skillet, Lions, that I made kind of our, like, I kind of made it our wellness theme,
Hmm.
kind of picked it for everybody else,
Hmm.
but everybody seemed to like it, and
Hmm.
I could go back and listen to that, and remind myself not who the negative side of me thinks I am, but
Yeah.
who I truly am, who God thinks I am, my purpose, and what I'm capable of.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
I need
That's
things like
beautiful.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. I don't think there's ever a one song. Like you said, there's a song that reflects different stages of your life and how you see yourself. So there's always a progression. Good. I like that. Yeah. Okay. Um, how about a book you read that really made you like, wow, like open your mind to a different world?
Oh, let's see. I mean, I have a couple that I'm reading right now, um, but from that aspect, that you're asking,
Hmm.
what I got
You're
some
looking
books.
at your library over there?
Yeah, I'm looking over at my library here. And I don't know, I mean, things that make me go, wow. I got quite a bit of
Yeah.
conspiracy type
Yeah.
stuff, that
Okay. Okay.
I can
You
lean.
like that. So that stuff makes you go, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
sometimes, like, my trainer get mad at me because I'll go down that rabbit hole, and it's not always puts me in a positive mindset. So I don't
Mm,
want to
yeah.
stay on that. I'm trying to think, like, what's something that, like, encouraged me and uplifted me. I guess, you know what? I'll say I really enjoyed this book,
Yeah.
and it's kind of funny. I haven't read it in a while, but it's right here looking at. In fact, let me grab it.
Yeah.
It's I'm a big pro wrestling fan, and as you learned,
Yeah.
uh, Wrestling for My Life by Shawn Michaels. Um,
Hmm.
this book, I will say, this guy was like, you know, uh, flashy, spectacular wrestler. Behind the scenes, he was, uh, a troubled individual. Overcame addiction. Had, I mean, like, almost died with the lifestyle he was living. but like he was like kind of like a rock star in wrestling. But then, you know, he met his current wife, and you know, she got him in, you know, he found his faith in Jesus Christ. It's just, his story is amazing from where he was, and he grew up an Air Force kid. His father was a bigwig in the Air Force in Texas too, so he grew up a military brat. And he's just vulnerable and transparent and shares this whole story in here. And not that I've done as flashy stuff as him, but I really connected and related to his going through his addiction and overcoming, and his faith and where he's at today, and his love for his kids and his wife and his family.
Nice.
And so yeah.
So you like autobiographies of evolution of character, right? And growth and overcoming adversities.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that in movies too. If there's like a character that gets built a certain way that I can relate to, you know, that they to overcome, yeah, like you said, any adversities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just always connect with that and get inspired, because I know there's more that you know, it used to be like, well, you know, I beat myself up. Well, man, if only you were like this person. Like when I was talking about my dad earlier, wish I could be half the man he was in life. But I'm who I'm supposed to be today, and I find motivation to learn. I find motivation to keep progressing, you know, through these people now.
Yes. Well said. I like that. I cooked up a really nice question for you, Bill. I can't wait for this one. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Describe the woman that you want to grow old with.
It's funny because me and my daughter had a talk last night about something. You know, I want to put her stuff out on Front Street, but we had I had to have some fatherly. I saw something I didn't approve of, and that they had did, and I'll just go ahead and say it. I mean, they put it out on social media. I saw some costumes they wore at a recent Halloween party that they went to. And I didn't, as a dad, I didn't like seeing my, there's always going to be my babies, no matter, you know, Celeste is 17 now, Bianca's 21. They're still my baby girls. And, you know, I want to encourage self-confidence and stuff. And so it's a slippery slope, and maybe you can help me with it being a woman too. But you can be confident in your body without like wearing something that almost shows your entire body. I mean, I know the young me I would be all about that, you know, and it kind of became a teaching moment too, because she kind of was just like, well, you know, I'm confident and whatever now. And, you know, I'm a bad bitch or something. She kind of prescribed herself as, and I didn't like that, but luckily I didn't fly off the handle like I would have in the past. I was able to have a conversation and a teaching moment. And then she even said to me, called me out, and this is why you can't have one, because you can't handle one. And that was kind of wow, you know, her saying that to me. But but then I got to say, well, you know what? I'm 48 years old. I don't need or want a bad bitch. I want a woman that I can grow old with, and I want to spend the rest of my life with, that I can have these types of conversations with, that I can share my vulnerability with, that I can, you know, be open and transparent with, and say, this isn't what, I'm sad about this, or this upsets me, instead of like stuffing things, you know, and then it becomes a resentment, and then it becomes an argument and whatever. And there's some women my age that they got their own healing that they need to do, that sometimes people are, you know, hey, why try and play matchmaker with me, I guess sometimes. And I'm like, No, because there's something that they need to work on,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm ever find anybody perfect, and we'll always need to work on ourselves on things, but there's certain phases where people up to me to fix them or help them, you know, we can help each other and walk together. But I don't know. I guess I'm the type of woman I'm looking for today. Someone to laugh with, to uh, to use as my weighted blanket, so I don't get up and go like you talked about earlier. To don't get up and snack on stuff I shouldn't be snacking on. But they love me for who I am right now,
Yeah.
physically and mentally. They love me for who I am right now. I don't have to be flashy and whatever. Not
Mhm.
that I want to be lazy, but they can be a partner that encourages me in this journey to keep getting better
Yeah.
physically and mentally, and I do the same for them.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
um, so I don't know. Did that answer?
You did very well. Yes, very nicely. I
We
wonder what Bill from age 20 would have said, right? Very
oh
different.
geez.
There's that whole evolution of character, and maturing and healing yields different answers at different stages of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I was a toxic person, and I was attracted to toxic people and toxicity, I think, back then. And
Yeah.
what I thought was normal in the rock and roll world and the
Mhm.
places that I hung out with is just like, oh yeah, well she's got to. I want a woman that will accept my other five girlfriends and invite them
Mhm.
over.
Yeah.
So it's just like ridiculous, like stuff that we think is cool back then.
Yeah.
And like your locker room talk with the guys, there's still
Mhm.
sometimes I get pulled in. I allow myself to be pulled into, but who I am as a character, as a person today, I'm a father of two beautiful young women,
Yeah.
and I want to be an example for them of
Yeah.
how a man's supposed to be. And they say, daughters are attracted to people like their father. I definitely don't want them attracted to who I was 20 years ago, and I still don't feel I'm who they need to be attracted to today, but I'm working on that, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to be better, and I want to be that example, and I want to find
Yeah.
a woman that's all right for me, being not not having it all together. And you
Yeah.
know we
Yeah.
feel in our heads, we get caught up in culture and TV and
Mhm.
magazines and everything, and I got to have you know six pack abs, or I got to be like strong, it this way, and hard worker here and this and that. And you can be, um, everybody's got different strengths and weaknesses, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to embrace what my strengths are.
Mhm.
And I'm not like, I don't like getting too physical a lot of times and things and anymore,
Mhm.
and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. Um, and I'd like to learn. I'm learning to. It's all right to be vulnerable and to take the armor off. And I think
Ah.
I'm been doing that right now with this
Ah, yes, you have.
conversation. And now it's all out there on Front Street. So all the alpha males that I know out there can make fun of me and pick, pick on me now. All the
Yeah.
guys at my gym and everything. Oh well.
It's certainly a freedom, right? To vulnerability is like the best thing on earth. I'm telling you, people are missing out. That
That's where the
vulnerable.
healing really started,
Yes,
when I was able to, I
yes.
mean, like I said, and if you weren't there with me, I don't know if I would have been able to be as
Mhm.
vulnerable
Mhm.
with and I don't want to, I love our group.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people that everybody had their own journey and their own
Yes.
wounds they needed to heal and
Absolutely.
stuff. And I'm glad it got to a circle, or got to a place
Mhm.
where I was able to be comfortable there.
Yeah.
And it was mostly women, so it's easier for me to, I guess, open up to women.
Mhm.
But I've learned now from that, with some of my men's groups that I attend in recovery, that I've been able to be vulnerable and even cry in front of some of these guys,
Yeah.
and they've been able to do the same, So,
Yeah.
um, and it's solidified stronger bonds and relationships
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
of that. you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Vulnerability is what brings me to my authentic self, and that's often childlike, not childish,
Yeah.
but childlike is what I tell people. I'm very much childlike, which is like the best part of myself. That's like my true self, right? And so what you're doing, being vulnerable like this on this podcast, it's showing other people that it's possible to do it with people that you love. I mean, you're doing it in public, right? So
Yeah.
so it takes a higher level of bravery to be vulnerable in public. Is when it's all out there, there's nothing to hide, and when there's nothing to hide, you have lots of leftover energy to create and do other things with your life, like you're doing.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
remember like back in my days of
yeah.
addiction and running around and cheating on my ex and on several of my exes,
Mhm.
um when you have so many lies you can't keep track of, it's hard to sleep at night. It's hard to, okay, what did I tell her on this? I was here. Where did I tell them?
Mhm.
When there's so many lies you can't
Yeah,
keep up with, man. It's just like it's heavy. And like you said, you can't sleep at night. You can't
yeah,
it's stressful. So just being
yeah.
real and honest is
That
so much
sounds like
freeing. And
living a hell, right? Like you can't keep up with the lies, right? So it's I think we create our own hell, right? That's
oh yeah.
sin. Missing the mark is we create our own hell and suffering, but we often don't realize that we're involved. We're like the film producer of
Yeah.
a hellish life.
Yep.
Until we release ourselves from that and we're like, okay, vulnerability, openness, truth, all the way 100%, and then that's when you really start living, right? You feel
Yeah,
things more
even
intensely though, right? But you
yeah, and
also
I
feel the joy.
even went through that part where it's just like, well, I'm not as bad as that person. So as long as I have somebody worse than me around, I'm
Yeah,
doing good. But,
yeah,
you know, I, what I usually see in other people that I don't like is a part of me that I don't like, that I still need healing and still need work on. So it's like I project, sometimes, and it's learning to, like, okay, why is this person bothering me and this characteristic of them bothering me? Oh, well, because I'm still that person.
yeah,
I still,
exactly.
will talk bad about somebody behind their back. I'll still be dishonest. I'll still pump myself up with a false
Mhm,
reality. And,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
it's just better to take it all down and start from, you know,
thank you. Thank you for admitting to that, because that's very hard to say, right? We don't like to let others know that we fail, that we make mistakes, and that we put our foot in our mouth because it brings shame. But when you're vulnerable like you're doing right now, there's shame. You control the shame, right? You make it disappear. It evaporates. And so good. I have one more question. Um, what would you want your legacy to be once you're gone from this planet?
It's funny because, like that's another one that I sometimes will ask. Um,
Hmm.
and I just felt as it's being asked to me, I felt this heaviness, not like in a bad way, but I mean, I'm
Yeah,
tearing up.
yeah,
Um, because that's huge.
yeah.
Who do I want to be? How do I want to be remembered? Who do I want to be? How do I want people to remember me? And especially my daughters. And
Hmm. Yeah,
I mean, I just I want to be remembered as somebody that you know. There's a lot of times it was like punk rock or hardcore or whatever, to act like I don't give a shit and this guy's just crazy. You don't care about nothing. But fact of
hmm,
the matter is, I was covering up a heart that cares so much. You know,
yeah,
and I want to be remembered as somebody that really gives a shit about others. I didn't just join the military as accolades for me. I joined, which I think a lot of us do, is because we want to give others a better life. I want my daughters to have a better life. I want everybody to have, you know, um, experience happiness and true love. We
Mhm.
get caught up in chase, go back to the stages of who I was. And I found an old notebook the other day of like, I was reading this book, Jack Canfield, Success Principles, and it said write down like 50 goals that you want to make, because when you start writing things down, it takes it to another level and holds you accountable. And this thing I wrote before I went, like long before I deployed, I was searching for something there, and then I find it and I look and I'm like, well, some of these goals I've accomplished and I stuck with, like getting, a bachelor's degree. I didn't finish the master's program, that whole history. Um, but other things were like, I want to start a record label. I want to be this, I want to own this house and that car and this whatever. And it's just like, man, I don't care about a lot of that stuff anymore. I want to be happy. I want to provide happiness for my children. I want them to know how much I love them. I want that person that I want to grow old with in my life to be happy and make them happy. Um, and I want to provide. I mean, one of the goals of starting this podcast, I always ask about, whoever I'm talking to, musicians, whoever, if they have a message for our military members overseas, because I want this to be, when I was deployed, I would escape through music or listen to some of my friends. I guess it was like, I don't know if they were podcasts back then, but some recordings, just to take me away from where I was, and the where we're at, and the uncertainty and the fear. And I hope that I provide happiness and an escape for our military members overseas. Um, so I don't know. I just hope that my legacy is. I've had a lot of people in my addiction days that either weren't good friends or friends that stuck with me even when I was the worst person I could have been, because they always saw this,
Mhm.
you know, they saw my heart, and they've stuck by my side, and my heart has, you know, like, I armored it up, covered it up, because it hurts sometimes to care so much, but I'm learning how to protect it and be vulnerable now.
Mhm.
And I just want to be remembered. I guess my legacy to be somebody that gives a shit about other people. I give a shit about my country. Um, I give a shit about your kids and the future that they grow up in. The listeners out there, everybody. I want everybody to just, I don't know. I'm a guy that cares. I guess that's my legacy, and I hope I try and get that out and I'm remembered as that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's certainly been my experience, Bill, in the years that I've known you. And it's we've had some great laughs. I think you have like an amazing sense of humor. I don't think I've laughed so much with comments that you've made, even like just stares. Like we'll watch a situation and Bill will like turn his eyeball to the left or something, and just the look that you make will just crack me up laughing. It's
Because
so
you can almost read what I'm thinking. Because
I think you broadcast what you think. Like, you don't even have to say it, you just say it with your face, and it's like, I know what he's thinking. It's just an amazing experience, and I can't wait for next summer when you and your daughters come back again to Virginia, visit, spend the day Virginia Beach, and hang out and talk. And We just have a great friendship, and we don't talk all the time, but when we do, it's like, we were talking yesterday before dinner or
Yeah.
something. So
When we
so
do,
it's
I'm crying in front of you, and it's
yep.
all good.
Or I'm crying in front of you, or whatever. It's free for all when it comes to good friendship. And um, I think it's your ability to be vulnerable that really helped me get connected with you. And so I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of what you're doing here with today's Boondoggle, and how many people benefit from listening to your interviews, your conversations. I mean, we learn through other people's lives, and you are leading the way by being vulnerable yourself and telling your story, and not putting forward a perfect dude, but someone who has many flaws, and also many assets, right? And you're a blessed individual. And so,
Thank
really,
you.
thank
Let me
you.
let me
Thank you for
accept
being tough.
let me accept that compliment.
Yes, that's I feel your acceptance, Bill. Thank you for accepting, my gratitude towards you, and also for letting me lead your baby, right, Boondoggle, and being your interviewer. This has
Yep.
been a great time for me. I really enjoy
Uh-oh.
this. I can't wait to hear your feedback from your audience, about how this was for them, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what it means to me. It's like it's why I ask some of the questions I ask when I have like musicians and stuff. That there's a standard thing where it's like, oh, we got to talk about the new album, we got to talk about the tour, we got to talk
yeah,
about, and we'll get to that. But let me ask you about, and 9 times out of 10 they leave, enjoying. I get feedback from their publicists and stuff
yeah,
like that. That man, they really had a great conversation talking with you, and
yeah.
that's what I want it to be. And I don't have the following that I would like yet, but I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and let it
Yes,
become what it's supposed to become. You know.
absolutely. Yes. Great.
So
Good. So how do you close this,
how do I
Bill?
close it?
How do you
Uh,
close this?
well, I'll just get ready to hit
Yeah.
end broadcast, but before I do,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I couldn't. There's nobody else that could have done this particular episode and lead this today that I can think of. I love you so much. You're my sister,
Thank
and
you,
I'm
Bill.
gonna get all emotional again as we end this. But
Yeah.
I love your family. Go give Luis a big hug for me.
I will.
I hope he's wearing his leather man pouch thing and
Always. Always.
and give the kids a hug and a kiss for me. And yes, I look forward to the next summer seeing you.
Yes.
Love you so much,
Me
Sonia.
too.
Thank you for
Me too,
doing this.
Bill.